Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Let me try to center myself here on camera. Hi, good morning. It's good to see you all. I like that you're already up, and maybe you have been up for a while, and you're chatting with each other. I am good this morning. We have the orange background. I'm wearing a black shirt. I didn't know it was going to be an orange background, but these are very Halloween colors, so this is appropriate for this time of year. Halloween is at the very end of the month. It's the last day in October. October 31st, which I think this year will fall on a Monday. I think it's a Monday this year. So, and of course, Halloween is the holiday where we like to dress up. Also, it looks like my cup is matching the background well. Kaio, I'm doing well. How are you doing? I hope you're all doing well this morning, or this afternoon, or this evening. I always forget that it's different. Hi, Santos. Good morning. Heatonzel TV. Can I just call you TV? Anwar, Haneen, Vivek. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good afternoon, good evening. Okay, as I said in the chat window before I began, we're going to talk about modals this morning, more about modals. Last time I talked about modals of probability, and today we're going to do modals of advice and ability. So as you know, modals can mean different things. I'm going to go ahead and get to the lesson now. Hello, students. Hello, friends. Hello, people around the world. It's always nice to see all the different places that you're in right now, that you come from. Very, very interesting. I have seen very little of the world, so it's nice that you're bringing all these pieces of the world to me here in America. Okay, let's get started. Without further ado, and I'm going to put that in the vocabulary section right away. The thing I just said is without further ado, without wasting any more time. It means I'll do it now. And you can always start a sentence this way, meaning I'm going to start now. Without further ado, here's my presentation. Hello, Guatemala, Brazil. What else did I see there earlier? Guatemala, Brazil, so we have South America being represented. What other countries are you from? While I'm waiting for that, while I'm waiting for your countries, I'll remind you of the links. Any questions you can send to Zach. You can always check out our live page. If you're interested in joining in as a subscriber, to subscribe for a month, you will get homework. Hooray, homework, right? Quizzes, homework and quizzes, lucky you, and a test, a final test, and a certificate. So you can subscribe for a month and you will get additional material from the teachers. Oh, good morning, India, Algeria, Philippines, Palestine, Saudi Arabia, Morocco, Ukraine. Indeed, the world is here this morning. Good morning, world. Okay, so check out these links. I've put them in the class notes. I'm going to share the class notes with you now. So there are the class notes for today's lesson, and I've included these links. Any more questions about these live classes, you can email Zach. If you want to see the additional material that's available if you're a monthly subscriber, go to this link here. And if you want to see where I'm at right now, you can always click this last link. This is my school here, where I'm at right now. Russia, Colombia. Yeah, many, many representatives from Algeria this morning. So welcome, Algeria. My name is Neal Hallgarth. As always, my name hasn't changed. You can look for me on Facebook and friend me on Facebook if you would like. Okay, let's look at some of the vocabulary we need to know before we begin. Last time we talked about probability, which is the likeliness something will happen. Do you think it will happen in the future? What is the probability? And sometimes we also use the word possibility as well. For me, probability is always stronger than possibility, although they are very synonymous. They're synonyms. Oh, that's not right. Let me control them. There it is. There, I pasted it in there. Well, as long as I'm still shouting out countries, good morning, Turkey, good morning, Vietnam, or good afternoon or good evening, depending on what time it is there. So what is the difference between probability and possibility? Well, kind of in use, actually. The meaning changes. Let me show you what I mean. An example of probability is if I ask the question, what is the probability we will finish this lesson today? And probably the answer to that would be something like 80%. You would probably give a number, some kind of mathematical percentage. If you ask the question, however, what is the, oh, let me unbold that. What is the possibility? What is the possibility we will finish this lesson today? Maybe good. There's a good possibility. I think we will. Possibility you wouldn't give a number to. You would answer it in some way like a guess. So probability is always stronger. It's a little more mathematical in a sense. Yes, good. Probability with percentage. Rosa, that's correct. Good morning, Pakistan. Bye-bye, Watashi. Sorry you have to go. For those of you staying, we will be talking today, though, because last time we talked about probability, possibility. Today we'll be talking about modals of ability and advice. Ability means you can do something. You have the ability to do it. You are able to. Advice, of course, is give recommendation to someone. Give, I could also say, suggestion. Recommendation or suggestion. It's like you suggest something, you recommend something. That is advice. So that's what we're looking at. Real quick reminder of the 10 modals. We have can, and today we'll also be talking about this phrase, be able to. And when you use those depends on your meaning, so we'll talk about that. So there's can and kind of its past form, could, can, could, may, might, shall, should, will, would, must, and of course we also have the phrase have to, and then finally ought to. So obligation will probably be next. We do have modals, of course, of obligation, which is a feeling of responsibility. So obligation, we do have obligation. So probability, possibility, ability, advice, obligation. One other thing, politeness. Asking for something. Asking for something in a mannered way. Manners meaning the way you behave in society. We could say showing good behavior. So when we use modals, we use them for probability, possibility, ability, advice, obligation, politeness. There are many uses for modals. Today we're going to concentrate on these two, ability and advice. Let's see. We have a couple of questions already. Have to, if I combine a verb, if you put a verb after have to, does it have to be infinitive? Yes, and I'm going to cover that. After these modals, you should always use an infinitive verb. And of course, there are a few exceptions, but usually an infinitive verb, verb number one, an unchanged verb follows the modals. So modals do make, in my opinion, do make grammar a little bit easier. Is it okay to give advice to a person who is in a higher position, such as a kid to their teacher? That's a good question. Steve, can we give advice up? In some cultures, yes. In some situations, yes. In some cultures, absolutely not. In American culture, it is not unusual for somebody in a lower position to give advice to someone in a higher position. However, it's a lot more probable that someone in a higher position usually gives the advice or the recommendation or the suggestion down to someone below them in some kind of status. So usually advice is given down, but it is possible, it is probable in some cases that it will be given up. Would I ever take advice from my students? Of course I would. I always listen to my students' advice. We call that, of course, feedback. Feedback. Feedback means like when there is too much sound for your speakers. You may have heard that before. If you ever turn your speakers up really loud and you get a whining noise, that is the real meaning of feedback. But commonly, we use feedback to mean response to someone's work. So if you, by work I mean if you write something, if you give a presentation, it could be anything. It could be a song, it could be a poem, it could be a painting, it could be artistic, it could also be a report if you ever had to write a report for work. Usually before you are considered finished or done, you would want to ask feedback from somebody. Please give me some advice about what I have just written. So, or painted, or sang, or reported. We ask for feedback. Please help me make it better. Give me feedback. As a teacher, I do accept feedback from students. I want to know how I can help them better, what they understood and what they didn't understand. I want to know, am I talking too fast? Am I talking too slow? Does something need to be repeated? So yes, advice can be given from somebody in a lower position to somebody in a higher position. Hopefully that answers your question, Steve. So yes, obviously in some cultures you can't. Some cultures you do not give advice to people who are older than you or people who are higher than you in status. And there are certain situations in my culture where it is not okay, where it is considered very rude to do that. But usually it is considered okay, I would say. Advice or advise? What's the difference? That's a good question. Advice or advise? Advice is the noun form. And then if we look at advise and look how closely they are in spelling, just one letter. Advise, what did I do? Advise is the verb form. So advise, just, yeah, give advice. And so advice, I should take away the give. It's just a recommendation. So advice is the noun. It is the recommendation or the suggestion. Advise is the verb. Okay, let's continue. There's our modals. Let's go over the rules one more time. Some rules that apply to all modals. These apply to all modals. They do not change forms like other verbs. Like, you know, regular verbs go from go, goes, went, gone, look, looks, looked, looked. Nope, not with modals. Modals will always stay the same. I might eat ice cream after dinner. No other form. No mighted, no mights. I should not eat ice cream after dinner. So your modal will always look the same. And of course you can contract this. I guess the difference would be the contracted form. I shouldn't eat ice cream after dinner. You can make a contraction with not. However, they're not going to change. There's no past or future form for modals. And following it will be verb 1. Follow it with a verb 1, an unchanged verb. Okay. Oh, the class notes, I guess you're asking for the class notes again. Let me share that link one more time, and I'll share it at the end too. There's a link to the class notes. Okay, let's see what else we have. There is no do, does for question forms. Of course, there's, like for this example. Can you give me a hand? Can you give me a hand? So we would use modal can. Now, if you want to use does in a question, it's different. You can use does in a question. I don't want you to get confused. You can use does in a question, but then you're asking a yes/no question. This one, can you give me a hand? Of course it's yes/no, but you're asking them, are you willing to do this? Will you ever do this? Can you give me a hand? And of course the person would come over and help you, or they would say, no, I'm busy. So we use the modal to ask the ability question. And this one is a simple yes/no. We're not asking for help or advice or ability or probability, possibility. The do, does is for simple, short yes or no questions. So no, don't, doesn't in negative form. You shouldn't eat ice cream at night. So use a modal. He shouldn't do that. So with modals, don't mix what I guess these two rules are saying. Don't mix do or does with a modal. Well, and then I say that, and then we have this sentence. He shouldn't do that. Of course, we're talking about a specific action. But I guess what we would mean here is you can't write a sentence like this. You cannot write a sentence like this. Not so small. I'll make it bigger in a second. So it would look like this. And by look like this, I mean the wrong example would look like this. You should do eat ice cream after dinner. If you have a verb already, you don't need do or doesn't. And something like this, you doesn't eat ice cream after dinner. You cannot do this either. In this case, to show the negative, you need the modal. You can only combine a modal and do if you're talking about some action. And here the action is not specified. It's a generic action, right? You shouldn't do that. Whatever you're doing right now, you shouldn't do that. And it might refer to what the person can see. So maybe the action that he's saying is you shouldn't do that. You can always be more specific. You could say something like you shouldn't write on walls. That's the action you shouldn't do. If you see that person writing on walls, you would just say, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. I may not eat ice cream after dinner. Okay, let's look at that sentence, a different sentence. You guys always ask such good questions that I always want to answer them. These are good questions. How about this sentence? I may not eat ice cream after dinner. Let's look at this sentence. I may not eat ice cream after dinner. Well, this is permission, and we haven't talked about permission yet. In fact, I forgot all about permission. I forgot all about permission. The allowance to do something. Asking, what could we say? Asking a superior if an action is okay. So before you said, can somebody in a lower status ask somebody in a higher status? Or can they give advice? In some cultures, yes. In some cultures, no. How about this? Permission. If you want to do something, often you have to ask permission. And if we look at this sentence, I may not eat ice cream after dinner means I do not have permission. My parents do not let me eat ice cream after dinner. My parents say no. So here we're using it as permission. Yes, modals can be used for permission. Is should the past form of shall? No, I'm going to say no to that one. Shall is kind of a strange word. We don't use shall in modern American English. I should say, not modern American English. I should say American English right now in 2016. We do not use shall a lot. It's very, very, very formal, extremely formal. And often when we use it, we kind of use it in a funny way. We use it to be funny or to sound maybe a little too formal. We don't use shall a lot. Should is used more for advice, and shall is used for politeness, I would say. And we'll talk about should here pretty soon. And we'll talk about should. I know you have questions about should. We'll get there. Abdisa, that is correct. If you need to ask, if you want to do something, oftentimes you need feedback. We can think of feedback as asking someone to comment on something. Can I join the meeting? Yes, permission. Good. Here's another permission one. Where can I put that permission one? Let's just put it here somewhere. More examples. That's a good example for permission. Can I join the meeting? Yeah, that's a sentence of permission. Can I join the meeting? Okay, let's get through these rules real quick. There are always, they are Modals are always followed by a base form verb. Base form verb. Again, infinitive, verb 1, do not change it. We would help if we had time. She mustn't do that. We ought to get, and then the to in ought to with the verb 1 makes an infinitive phrase, so you'll have an infinitive phrase. We ought to get going. We do not usually have past or gerund forms, and this is kind of the exception rules. So for example, I hate having to get up early. Have to. So this form of must, this have to, allows us to use the gerund form. Having to. So with that one, it's okay to use the gerund form, and that's an exception. That's an exception. And the meaning will be must. And then the other exception is am, is, are, was, were, able to. One of the be able to's. I was able to play piano better when I was a child, and that's a past form of can. So with two phrases, have to and be able to, we can use different grammar forms, and we can use the gerund form. And then finally, some can be used with the perfect infinitive to make past forms. You shouldn't have done that. So if you include the word have, you can make a perfect infinitive. She must have stayed home. And we'll talk about that one later. Oh, when should we use the gerund form? If we have a verb pattern, meaning a verb like hate, and then another verb like have. So I could say, I like having to walk to work in the morning. It's a chance to get exercise. So if we have a verb like hate, then we can use that having to. It's called a verb pattern, a verb and a verb. Okay, let's get to the actual lesson, and I'm actually going to present it. So let's talk about ability first. Modals of ability. Can expresses ability, and in general, could is the past form, and I know you asked about that. So here are some examples. She can play piano well. When she was a child, she could play piano well. And I think with these two sentences, you can easily see the difference between present ability and past ability. The first one is, of course, present ability. She can play piano well. Still today, she can play piano well. And then the last one, or the last sentence, the second sentence, is past. When she was a child, she could play piano well. Now, probably not. Maybe she did not continue to practice. So, ability, can and could. Other forms of can are expressed by the phrase be able to. I have been able to understand this movie. She will be able to get here at 8 p.m. Being able to drive has really helped my lifestyle. I would love to be able to do that. Okay, so let's jump out of here for a second. Let me go to here. Let me put some of these as examples in the class notes so you have those. For those of you looking at the class notes right now, let's add some of these sentences. Okay, the first one, she can play piano well. We use can for, of course, present ability. And we use could to show past ability. But we can use that be able to. And here we have been able to. A perfect form of be able to. I have been able to understand this movie. From the past up until now, I understand. So for a period of time, for a length of time, I have been able to understand this movie. And notice we do have this to, and look at the verb that comes after the to. Just a simple verb one, an infinitive verb. Something that hasn't changed. So from the past up until now, I understand. Let's look at the next one. She will be able to get here at 8 p.m. Will be able to. And then, of course, look at that verb one, get. And, of course, you see that will. That must, of course, be future. So we can use be able to talk about future ability. Being able to, there's a gerund form. Being able to drive has really helped my lifestyle. Being able to drive. And here we're talking about ability, but it's the subject. It's the subject. So ability as subject of the sentence. Because here we have has really helped. There's our verb. Let me bring that back. There's our verb. Being able to, subject, has really helped a verb. So here we have ability as the subject of the sentence. Very interesting. And then finally, I would love to be able to do that. Another modal we have, I keep making that same mistake. Another modal, we have another modal, would love to. So we're using this be able to do. If we have this to, kind of our be able to do, here we have ability as the infinitive. Because it's coming after to. I would love to be able to do that. Very interesting. So this be able to, and of course that includes is able to, are able to, was able to, were able to, and here we see have been able to, will be able to, being able to be able to. It can be used in different parts of the sentences in different ways. You can change the grammatical form of be able to. Very, very useful, very interesting. I saw a question up here earlier about piano. I wanted to answer the piano questions. So, play piano versus play the piano. Kind of the same. She can play the piano well. She can play piano well. Piano is, of course, a little more general. But I think in English, if you say she can play the piano well versus she can play piano well, the same. It means more the skill than the instrument itself. If you say she can play piano well, that's referring to skill. She can play the piano well actually means the same thing, that specific skill. It's not talking about a specific piano. So in this case, when we talk about skill, either you can use the what are the on and are articles. You can use the articles, but you don't have to use the articles. Kaio, you're asking the question, would we ever ask, would I borrow your pen? No. This one, I think, is very unusual. For permission, we're back to permission. Would I borrow your pen? Probably not. For permission, no. It sounds like a conditional. Would I borrow your pen if I needed to sign the check. It sounds like a conditional. Still strange though, still strange. We would not use would. Of course we would use could. What else do we have? A lot of questions this morning. You guys have a lot of questions. So would is not really interchangeable with could. I would say don't use those as synonyms. Would and could, not synonyms. Could is the past form of can. Sometimes it can be used a little more than just that. For example, I could ask, do you think it could rain today? Do you think it could rain today? I would probably never ask, do you think it can rain today? I would ask it with the could. Do you think it could? Like, is there a possibility? I probably would never ask, do you think it can rain today? Because of course, it can rain every day if there are clouds. For specific things, be able to? Yes, we can use be able to for specific things. Yes, of course. Be able to is good for very, very specific things. And what is... Rabbi is asking the question, what is the exact meaning of be able to? Can just means can. Be able to is the same as can. Can, could, be able to. You have the ability. Yes, that's a good question as well. Kaio, this is that Kaio's question? Yes, this is the noun. This is the noun. It's the subject and it's the noun in the sentence, being able to drive. Gerunds are nouns. Grammatically, they're nouns. It's being able to talk, and there I used be able to. It's being able to talk about an action as a noun, as a subject or object. Yes. So not I'm used to be able to play the guitar. Santhos, it's the second one. I used to be able to play guitar. If we're going to use used to, and we're not really talking about used to right now, I'll put that below. I used to be able to play guitar. This can also show, of course, past ability. We're not really going to talk about used to, but used to is also used to show past ability or habit, past habit. I used to be able to play guitar. Okay, let's continue. Let's talk more about ability. Let's talk more about ability. It sounds like you guys have a good grasp, a good ability to understand these modals of ability so far, so let's continue. Okay, to express a past ability on one occasion, so just on one particular occasion, not habit, not tendency, not skill, do not use could. Was or were able to, or even, here's a new phrase, managed to, are used in this situation. So let's look at these examples. Were you able to find the restaurant okay? Last week, I wasn't able to do much homework. He was able to figure out the bus system this morning. So let's take a look at these examples. I'll put them in the class notes as well. So here we have, were you able to? And then, our be verb is at the beginning. And of course, we put the subject in between because it's a question. If you notice at the end, there's a question mark. So with the question, we invert the auxiliary and the subject. Were you able to find the restaurant okay? Not, could you find the restaurant okay? Last week, I wasn't able to do much homework. Last week, I wasn't able to do much homework. Not last week, I couldn't do much homework. So in English, informally, we do use could in these forms. Grammatically, is it correct? No. You want to use the formal. He was able to figure out the bus system this morning. However, informally, would you hear somebody in American English use could? Yes, but it's not correct. It's not correct. You can't always listen to American speakers because we have a lot of informal speech. So informally, could you say, just tab key. Keep using the tab key, it keeps shooting me down to the bottom. He was able to figure out the bus system this morning. In speech, would we change this to could? Yes, but it's very informal. It's very informal. So we might use that, but again, informal, informal. Okay, let me make these bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit easier to read. And it's okay if you're late, if you're just joining us. Fariha, if you're just joining us, we are talking about modals, modals of ability. We're not very far. I'm always slow, so we're not very far. So remember, formally you want to use be able to. This is more correct and more accurate as well. Informally, can you use could? Of course. If you're speaking to friends or you're just speaking to somebody on the street, normal street, common language, of course you can use could. Let's look at next. We use could when we are describing general past abilities or habits. So very general, remember that. Could is used for past abilities or habits. When I was younger, I could run a lot faster than I do now. When I lived in that country, I could eat that kind of food every day. When I was a child, I couldn't understand the meaning of this word. So it's talking about past habit or ability, and it's very general. It's general. Again, let me add that to class notes, and I'm going to make these a little bit bigger, easier to read. When I was younger, I could run a lot faster than I do now. Could, and what could they do? Run. Nowadays, no, that was in the past. When I lived in that country, I could eat that kind of food every day. Maybe a spicier kind of food, but now I can't eat spicy food anymore. But when I lived in that country, yes. When I was a child, I couldn't understand. So again, using the negative to show an inability. Let's look at some of your examples. Lucas, you have this one for be able to. I'll add that here. Yesterday, I wasn't able to attend the meeting. Yesterday, I wasn't able to attend the meeting. Yeah, good use of the negative here. Good use of the negative, Lucas. Was not able to. And then, of course, verb attend. That's correct. And then Kaio, yours would be, of course, the informal. Informal. Let me put that in there. Yesterday, I couldn't attend the meeting. You can use this, but it's more informal. It's more informal. Remember, be able to is for a one-time action, not a regular occurrence, not a habit. So this is more correct. This is the formal. Yesterday I wasn't able to attend the meeting, just that once. I am not in the habit of missing meetings. This one, however, we could use informally, but it sounds more like these where we're talking about a habit. So let's label these as habits. We usually use could and couldn't to talk about past habits. These ones, remember, the formal is a one-time action. Of course, in speech in America, where will you hear incorrect use of could to mean be able to? Yes, of course. But again, remember, that's informal, and you'll usually hear that in speech. In the morning or this morning? Okay, Vivek. You have a question. He was able to figure out the bus system this morning versus he was able to figure out the bus system in the morning. Okay, so when we use a prepositional phrase like this, in the morning, it talks about the time he was able to figure out. It gives a time that the action happened. He figured it out in the morning. He was able to figure out the bus system this morning. This morning, just it's more general. It's not pointing to the time the action happened. It did happen this morning, but it's not focusing on the verb. It's just kind of helping out that this happened sometime in the past, in the general past. This is much more general this morning than in the morning. In the morning. This makes it sound like he was able to figure out the bus system in the morning. Maybe he didn't take the bus in the morning, or maybe he figured it out this morning and then took a bus later in the afternoon or evening. This one, though, everything happened sometime generally in the past. So sometime, we're not sure, general. He figured out the bus system in the morning, but maybe he will take the bus sometime later. So this one, in the morning, talks about him figuring out the bus schedule, but doesn't necessarily mean he took the bus that morning. This one, everything happened this morning, sometime in the morning. He figured it out and he took the bus. So yes, there is a difference. That's a good question. Can we use would for past habits? Yes, we can use would for past habits. I'll start out. When I was a child, I would read books with my grandmother. And this one's a little different. When we use would to talk about past habits, we're also talking about something called nostalgia. We're talking about something called nostalgia. A feeling, and I'm going to use another word here, another vocabulary word, a bittersweet feeling of the past. You want to go back, but you can't. Of course you can't travel back to the past. So when we think about the past and we have a good feeling about it, we feel nostalgia. It makes us want to go back, but of course it's impossible to go back. So we get a bitter, sweet feeling, a little good, a little bad. It's a good memory, but it kind of hurts a little bit to remember because you can't go back to that good time again. So yes, you can use would, but it's going to have the meaning of nostalgia. Okay, I would love to answer all your great questions, but now I have to go fast. Now it's the lightning round because we are running out of time. So let's talk about advice. Should and ought to, there should be a to after this, should and ought to are able to express mild advice. Remember, ought is the only modal that needs the word to before the verb. The negative is ought not to, but its use is rare. We don't use ought not to much. You really ought to study more. He shouldn't be so careless. To give strong advice, we use had better. Usually this means if you do not do this, something bad will happen. And although we use had, this does not have a past meaning. If you want to do better in class, you had better study and come every day. If you don't study or come every day, you will do terribly in class. She had better call me. If she doesn't call me, I will be angry. Remember that had better doesn't really show the past. The negative of had better is had better not. I had better not eat this. I will get fat. You had better not do that again. You will get in trouble. Okay. Whew. Okay, that went fast, but that's advice. So let me put these sentences in as examples, and then of course I'll make them bigger once they're in. So I would remind you that the had better is not about the past. Had better is not about the past. And here we have ought to. Remember, you need ought to together, and then the verb study. Shouldn't is usually negative. We have ought not to, but that's not used a lot. Ought not to is not used a lot. And then we have this new expression, this new advice expression, had better. Of course, never get confused. Had does not show the past. All right, good night, Calvin. Sweet dreams. Lightning round. Steve, okay, I'll put that in the vocabulary. One last thing, had better not is the negative. Okay, lightning round. I said lightning round. I'll add that to the vocabulary. Lightning round. I'm not sure, but I think it came from game shows. An expression that came from game shows, meaning a shorter amount of time to complete the same task. So it's kind of it's a newer idiom. That means you just have less time to do the same thing. So if you're watching a game show and they're asking someone questions, if the host then says lightning round, he's going to keep asking questions, but his voice will go faster and the person playing will have a shorter amount of time to answer. Lightning round. So knowing that I was running out of time, I wanted to get through the advice part as fast as possible. So I said lightning round, lightning round. So if you're doing the same thing, but you're about to go faster, you can shout out lightning round, lightning round. Speaking of asking questions, we just have about 5 more minutes. I'd like to put some questions up for you to answer. All right, can you see that in the background? I think you can. Maybe just make it a little bit bigger. Do you guys want to try to answer A through H? And the example on A here is last night I was able to, or we didn't really talk about manage to, but it's a synonym. Manage to understand a political movie without subtitles. So do you want to try B through H? And of course, I'm going to jump out for a sec. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Go ahead and write your answers in the chat and see how you do. Okay, be right back. Sound's off. Thank you. Thank you for the advice. My sound was off. That was my fault. The sound works fine. I didn't click on the microphone again. Okay, so let's talk about this again. B, I would love to be able to vote for a leader in my country. C, before the use of DNA samples, police were not able to investigate crimes with much scientific evidence. D, I wouldn't be able to do that because it's against my morals. E, I don't think I will ever be able to do that. Is that right? No. Be able to finance a new home. F, was the criminal able to? Was the criminal able to get parole yesterday? G, around here, you are able to see the occasional crime committed, but they are rare. And then H, in general, I think, oh, can you? So G, let me change my answer to G. Around here, you can see. H, in general, can you understand English movies? Okay, I changed to the can for the last two because they are general, in general. Okay, so you have a lot of good questions today, and you wrote a lot of good examples. I hope you feel okay about modals. Maybe more modals next time as well. Maybe we'll continue with modals because we haven't covered everything. So far, with modals, we have covered probability, which of course is kind of the same as covering possibility, ability and advice. Maybe we should talk about obligation, politeness, and permission. So maybe I'll continue with modals. Have a fantastic rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, the rest of your Wednesday. It was my pleasure. Thank you for participating. Thank you for asking so many great questions. If we don't get to everything, it's usually because you're asking such great questions. So keep working, keep practicing. You guys are awesome at your ability to practice English and write English. I'll share the class notes one more time, and then until next time, I will keep working. You keep working on your English as well, and I will see you very, very soon. Okay, talk to you later. Good night, good afternoon, and good morning. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.